Hello, monkeys. It is I, Lord Emperor of the Universe, Lord Frieza.
And me, Cell. Always told me that you mortals haven't subscribed to Drip Sauce.
Beerus, let me handle this.
That's Lord Beerus to you, Frieza. Whis! Oh, Whis!
My lord, you called.
Tell these mortals the consequences of refusing to subscribe to Drip Sauce.
Ah, yes. If you refuse to subscribe to Drip Sauce, Lord Beerus will annihilate not only your planet, but your entire universe as well. So what are you guys standing around there waiting for? Hit the subscribe button right now.
Like I just walked out the gym and the bitches just got it cause I took the gym. Give him a job and he gave me a rep. It was too long so he gave me a minute. How is that possible?
Hello everyone, it is me, your Lord and Savior Drip Sauce, coming to you today with another amazing video debunking every single argument against the afterlife being outerversal. And I'm doing this for you guys because recently I just came back from college and we have a 3-week holiday, so I will be posting a video once every week for the remaining of the 3 weeks before I head back to college. I don't really have time to post while I'm in college because I have to study, so take that as you may. If you are new to the channel, please do consider subscribing as well as leaving a like on the video and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any video whenever I release one. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much for 900 plus subscribers. Please like, share, comment, leave a like on the video, bro. It really helps a lot, bro. And now, without any further ado, let's get straight into the video. The first argument people try to use is the fact that the other world is within the macrocosm, which in turn would be within the timeline, and since it would be within a timeline, it would therefore not be outerversal since it would be bounded by the timeline. People who make this argument usually come to this conclusion via the manga chapter where it shows Universe 10, and in context is talking about the afterlife of Universe 10, so it shows Universe 10's afterlife via the macrocosm diagram. They make the argument that since Universe 10 is within the timeline, then the afterlife must be within the timeline since it is shown as a part of Universe 10 within this macrocosm diagram. The problem is that this macrocosm diagram is for simplification purposes only, and it cannot be used to assert the actual proportions of the afterlife since within fiction, it is not really possible to draw or describe an actual outerversal realm. Even Akira Toriyama himself said that he just made the diagram for the readers to be able to wrap their minds around it, and including the staff members and himself to be able to understand the cosmology. It is not to be taken as a one-to-one diagrammatic of the entire macrocosm. It is simply to show a simplified version of the realms within, or the realms that are connected to each universe, which in turn make up the macrocosms. These people mostly suffer from confusion as they do not understand the Dragon Ball cosmology, they do not read guides, or they do not properly watch the anime in order to assess the information that has been given to us. The anime, manga, and databooks makes us to understand that there are separate realms within the after Dragon Ball macrocosms, and these realms are completely separate from each other either by space or time or conceptually. For example, the living world is a separate realm from the afterlife. The afterlife is verbatim stated to be separate from the living world, so it is a separate realm. It is not part of the living world. It is a completely separate realm. So if you go on the argument that the afterlife is a part of the Dragon Ball universe, just know that it is not connected to it, to space and time. It is a separate realm, and there are separate space-time continuums even within the living world, which include the demon realm and the living universe itself, which are separate space-time continuums within the actual living world itself. Another argument people use is the fact that King Kai's planet has gravity, therefore it would mean that the afterlife would have space-time. Since gravity is the curvature of space-time, and for it to exist, space and time would have to exist, so it would mean that the afterlife would have a curvature of space-time, making it bounded by time, and therefore not outerversal by definition. The problem with this argument is that the afterlife is actually heavily implied to be non-corporeal, and in case you don't know what corporeal means, corporeal basically basically means having a physical body or existing within a space, being tangible, or being made of material objects. So if the afterlife is implied to be non-corporeal, it would mean that it is not a physical place, and the things within the afterlife are not actual physical things. The only reason why they are drawn to appear physical is because of entertainment purposes. For example, if the afterlife was drawn like some blank piece of shit from Marvel, which is completely unentertaining, it would not be entertaining for the audience. People need to realize that Dragon Ball is not just a fighting anime and manga, it is for entertainment purposes. Things have to look pretty, things have to look good, otherwise it would not be selling, it would not be as popular as it is. So the afterlife is not a physical place, nothing within the afterlife is actually physical, it is just drawn to look physical for entertainment purposes. So the thing is that if it is not physical, it means that there is no physical thing there, and for the gravity to exist, for curvature of space-time to occur, it has to be a physical object with a lot of mass. And if there is no physical object within the afterlife, it would mean that there is nothing with a lot of mass to curve any space, which would mean that there is no gravity, so there would be no proof that there was space there in the first place. This could simply be addressed as King Kai's planet having artificial gravity. We know this isn't strange, as the Kais have been shown to be capable of adding artificial gravity or artificial mass to things rather, and we know this can exist because the afterlife has its own rules that it functions with. So the afterlife or the planets in the afterlife could just have some sort of artificial non-physical gravity that doesn't necessitate the existence of space and time or its curvature for it to function.
You can't use that, Drip Sauce. It comes from a Databook that says that Super Saiyan is a 2.5 times multiplier, so it's non-canon. It contradicts the source material, Drip Sauce. You can't use a non-canon Databook to support your claims.
So this problem actually arises from the fact that Japanese people had difficulties understanding numbers with millions a long time ago. This problem actually existed in the Daisenchu, and it still exists on the Kaizenchu till today. If you read this article, it should help you understand why this was a problem, and it should solve the problem of that argument because it's all in all not valid. By the way, this is from the official Dragon Ball website, so you can go search it up if you don't trust the sources, and you can just read it up for yourself because that basically clears up what you need to understand. Not to mention, the Databook is literally licensed by Shueisha and Toei Animation. Literally licensed by Dragon Ball. Literally. Just read through this. Let's read through this editor's note real quick. Much of what is discussed here is extrapolated not only from what can be seen in the episodes of Dragon Ball Z TV show, but also from the Dragon Ball Z manga and various source books. The excellent Shueisha Press Dragon Ball Z book series from starters, and from Akira Toriyama's own sketches and manga cover pieces. We received all this together to give you, the reader, some idea of what life might be in Dragon Ball Z. It's definitely not canon. Definitely not canon. Let's read another one. To get the true picture of the Dragon Ball Z cosmos, you have to do a bit more digging than what you'll discover in the TV show. If you already know a bit about Chinese/Japanese myths and legends, you may not need this little side trip. But if you're a newcomer, some of what we'll discuss here will help you get a better feel for how Goku's universe works. Basically, what it's telling you is that the anime and manga will not give you the accurate or the most concrete information of what you'll need to understand about the cosmology, and you necessarily need these guidebooks to understand the Dragon Ball cosmology. You need the guidebooks. They're literally telling you, read the guidebooks. The guidebooks are important. You can't understand the cosmology with only anime and manga. Not to mention, Akira Toriyama literally considers the guidebooks as canon valid and the information within them as being very useful to him, since he's a forgetful fuck. Toriyama actually had little to no involvement in the creation of the guidebooks. He left this to the staff members who he considers to be more credible than himself on knowledge about Dragon Ball. So the next time I hear someone say using guidebooks is bad, I'm finna go from Goku to Kakarot on them. People try to argue that the afterlife has time because of the Goku and King Kai shit. However, people are acting like time does not flow on Earth. So you think that they have all the free time they want on Earth? No, man. Just because Goku is in the afterlife doesn't imply that time on Earth does not pass. There is no demonstration that time exists in the afterlife, but rather, What Goku and King Kai are referring to is the fact that they have the idea of time, a personal time that doesn't correspond to an actual law of cause and effect as in a universe where time exists. And this is for the simple fact that mathematically speaking, there is no formula for time in the afterlife. Therefore, time is indefinite, and what passes are not actual days or months, but an undefined amount of time, since it does not exist, end quote, which if compared to human terms can be said to be 2 days, since time on Earth continues in every case to flow. Time on Earth continues to flow in every case, alright? So that argument is completely stupid. Another one I hear is the fact that Goku was running against a clock in the afterlife and the events were matching each other and the same amount of time was passing, etc. I've heard this one. This one is one of the stronger arguments that these down players use, and most of the Dragon Ball fans can't counter this argument, and they end up getting debunked and coming to my DM saying, "Drip Sauce, you gotta help me with this, blah 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 blah." It's really simple. It's basically an appeal to reality fallacy. Let's say we have a place A and place B. In place A, time continues to flow, and people in place B are able to see what is happening in place A at the same moment, but place B has no time. So they would be assuming that place B has time as well, but this is fallacious when applying to a fictional context, because you still cannot apply the same amount of time, because if you argue that it is not an abstraction, the afterlife, via the evidence we've shown in this video, is at least a separate space-time continuum. So arguing that the time is the same is kind of dumb. How can the opera continue if you're not showing what is happening in it? So in a lot of anime and manga, you have demonstrations where events happen on different pages. Different events happen, but they aren't necessarily at the same time. Having two different events happening in the same time is just the author's decisions on how to represent the whole thing. There's something called narrative progression. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that space-time exists or the same time is passing. It could just mean that it's a narrative progression showing two different events occurring at the same point in time of the series, but not necessarily meaning that space-time exists there. Goku and the others just needed to understand what was happening in the living world while not being there physically. Toriyama really doesn't understand how a place without the concept of time would work. He just created a place called the afterlife, which once you analyze it via the databooks and you looked at the properties of it, you can access that it has outerversal attributes, but it's not going to fit that definition of outerversal 100% within the actual series. This is what most people want, which is ratty as fuck, because using that logic debunks so many other fictions being outerversal. A fictional opera doesn't necessarily have to make sense. The context behind this scan is literally just King Kai using earthly terms to describe the efficiency of his training as in contrast to that of Earth. He's just bragging about his training being much better than that of Earth, and this doesn't mean time exists in the afterlife. As we already established, these kinds of things don't just work. People also say that since it is an extra-dimensional space as is stated in the Daisenchu, it would just be 5D. First of all, extra-dimensional doesn't really mean higher dimensional, it just means outside of normal space and time, or outside of Einsteinian space and time, which Dragon Ball does have, by the way. This is just referring to the fact that the afterlife is outside of space and time. It is not really a space, as we've established previously, and we will still establish that the afterlife is in fact not a spatial construct. So the space in this case would just be a name fallacy. It would just be like a view-based point and not necessarily something that corresponds to actual physics or logic.
Hey, Drip Sauce, if the afterlife is non-physical, then how come Goku can keep his physical body there? How can he touch stuff? Why is he touching stuff that's non-physical?
Goku is a hero, so he had permission to keep his physical body while in the afterlife, proving furthermore that there is no time in the afterlife because it's stated that he doesn't age anymore while he's in the afterlife. This is due to the fact that there is no time to age while you're in the afterlife. The special permission Goku was given seems to be some kind of access to non-physical interaction or some properties based on ki, which would explain why Goku is able to interact with non-physical objects in the afterlife. Did you know that in the anime, the living world is actually called the lower realm? I'm not kidding, even Goku Black states that he's from a much higher place than the universe, and he's seen the truth and everything in the universe, meaning from that place they observe the universe, which would be consistent with what is shown in the Daisenchu, what's been told to us throughout the entire source material. Another argument I've heard is the fact that Snake Way is confirmed to be 1,000,000 kilometers long, and for it to have a length, it would need to have space to have a length and time as well, since it's intertwined with space, therefore contradicting it being outerversal. This would just be an appeal to reality fallacy, and let me explain why. So these guys from Marvel are literally stated to be abstract, non-physical, conceptual beings multiple times, right? And they embody actual concepts like time and space, right? And they live in a realm that is abstract and non-physical, right? Which is just verbatim outerversal. I agree with Marvel being outerversal. That's just outerversal verbatim. So here are these guys literally having a conversation. And for the fact that they're having a conversation, it means that this place is no longer outerversal. Ask me why. Trip sauce, why? Let me explain. To have a conversation, you need to be able to speak. To be able to speak, you need oxygen. To have oxygen, you need space for the particles to exist. So without space, you can't have a conversation. So by this logic, no outerversal realm in fiction is outerversal anymore because they have conversations in them. You see where the logic of applying real life physics to fictional contexts, you see where it falls apart. So it's just an appeal to reality. Don't ever use that argument, it's stupid. It makes you look like a clown. Here's the living universe being referenced as a lower realm again. Super Saiyan 3 is a transformation that literally drains time and vitality, as it's shown in these scans right here. The afterlife is actually referenced as having no time, as Super Saiyan 3 works better there, and there is no time for the form to run out as opposed to the living world. While Goku is in the Kaioshin realm, which is on the same plane of existence as the afterlife, it is stated that Goku can never go, in fact, back to the temporal world again, referring to the living world, which implies that the realm Goku is in is non-temporal, which would make sense since the Kaioshin realm exists on the same plane as the afterlife. It orbits the macrocosm, basically orbits around the afterlife, so it would make sense for it to be outside of time as well. Chi-Chi literally states that Goku did not age at all, which is consistent with what we know about the afterlife. In the afterlife, even if you keep your physical body, you do not age at all. This is due to the fact that there is no time to age in the afterlife. It's also stated in the manga as well that time does not exist in the afterlife. It's also stated in the Daisenchu as a consistency to the statements in the anime and in the manga, which proves furthermore that the Daisenchu is valid. This also proves that the fact that the afterlife has no time is something that Toriyama intended. Even guidebooks like the Super Exciting Guide take it as far as saying that there is no concept of time in the afterlife, which just seals the deal. We know that space-time in Dragon Ball functions the same way as real life, as it's stated here, and if there is no concept of time, it means there is no concept of space as well. I think I've explained this multiple times in my other videos. You can check those out because I don't want to go too in-depth on this part so the video doesn't get too long. In this guide, we actually see that the hyperbolic time chamber is actually stated to be an interdimensional place, separated from the rest of the areas where the concepts of time and space do not exist. Within context, the rest of the areas here in this case would be referring to the afterlife, since it is on basically the same page of the Databook, and it's basically saying that the concepts of time and space do not exist in the afterlife, since it would be quite contradictory for this to be referring to the hyperbolic time chamber due to what we know as what has been shown in the series, that it is a dimensional place. It is a dimensional place. The hyperbolic time chamber has time, it has space, but the afterlife does not, and it's consistent for this to be referring to the afterlife rather than the hyperbolic time chamber, especially since it's basically on the same page or the same area. So this further confirms the fact that there is no concept of time or space in the afterlife. I love how people say that instant transmission contradicts the afterlife being outerversal since it somehow is connected to space, when that is simply not true. Instant transmission is regarded as an extremely high level of teleportation. If you actually read some parts of the Daisenchu, it states that instant transmission takes you into a place called the instant transmission zone, in which you're able to access places as long as you can sense the energy there, which is consistent with what we see in the movies, as Goku is able to enter a zone called the instant transmission zone multiple times when he's talking to King Kai, as well as when he's fighting Cooler. And yes, the movies are canon. I have a video on why everything in Dragon Ball is canon, from the games to the movies to Dragon Ball Heroes, etc. So go watch those. And that no concept of time scan is not a mistranslation. Jisho, which is the best Japanese dictionary on the planet, literally picked out the kanjis for concept and time from that scan. So no, it's not a mistranslation. And also, I've seen people try to downplay this or rat about this. Bro, we literally have 2 scans saying there's no concept of time, with the second one even verbatim going as far as saying there is no concept of space as well, which we know is consistent with what we've able to access about the afterlife. So stop downplaying and stop ratting Dragon Ball. Just, if you don't like it, just leave it alone, bruh. It's strong. Deal with it. Before I continue, I just want to get some things straight here, guys. Just because something is not contained in the original source material does not imply that it is wrong or incorrect. This generally applies to all works in fiction, more specifically for Dragon Ball, as in various guidebooks, like I've shown several times, it's directly specified that in order to best understand the cosmology of Dragon Ball, it's necessary to go around poking externally from the anime and manga. Furthermore, if a fact is stated outside of the original work, it could be either true or false. And that is where the task of reasoning about it comes in to arrive at the conclusion about how the fact could be true or incorrect. So to say that if something is not contained in the original work, then it automatically doesn't matter or doesn't count is just stupid. Another argument people try to use the fact that since the afterlife is stated to be separated from the human world, separated by time and space instead of from time and space, it would mean that it's just separated by time and space, meaning that we connected to time and space, contradicting it being outerversal. This debunk is meaningless since grammatically speaking, the phrase by time and space is incorrect and makes no sense following the context. There's a big difference between from and by, and usually the latter is that from is used to indicate something derived from a subject, while by is used to indicate something made by the subject. So by looking at the context and what we've been able to derive throughout my entire video, we can see how from is the exact grammatical choice that is correct for the statement. So it is supposed to say separated from time and space, alright? It's supposed to say that the afterlife is separated from time and space. So this would be kind of a mistranslation, but take it however that you want to. And now, to claim that the afterlife or whatever, the translation, the word transcend just means being superior in height, is just an excuse for those who can't fully understand what is written in most of the translations that are accurate. It is specifically said that the afterlife transcends dimensions that cannot be perceived from the human world. So the human world is at least 4D. Unperceivable dimensions fall into a category where they are always larger than 4D, alright? Note how, among other things, there is the plural word for dimensions, alright? Is the plural word dimensions. Dimensions, not just dimension. Thus indicating that there is more than one dimension that falls into the category of greater than 4D. Realistically speaking, this scan simply refers to how the afterlife is neither a physical nor dimensional place, but rather an abstract or immaterial place. This is also demonstrated by all the information found in various data books that describe the afterlife as a metaphysical, abstract, or spiritual realm, naming several times the Chinese and more generally the Asian mythology, and led us to remember that the work of Dragon Ball is derived from Journey to the West. So there are many similarities and mechanisms, especially those of cosmology, and they have been borrowed, alright? Journey to the West is about metaphysics and spirituality, and Dragon Ball draws those mechanics. Back to the point about the macrocosm diagram, because I felt like I need to reiterate on this. Showing Toriyama's simplified map to prove that transcend only means being superior in height is super fallacious. This is for the simple reason that the map does not describe the actual composition of the cosmology, but serves only to give a depiction of it precisely simplified and not in a proportionate scale. To make it clearer how the cosmology in Dragon Ball works, alright? This was specified in Toriyama's interviews precisely about the macrocosm map. Furthermore, just because heaven is depicted as taller than the living world on a simplified map does not logically prove that the word transcend is to be taken as being superior in height. This is an equivocation fallacy, so don't ever use that. Okay, so by the way, the directions like right, left, above and below, or up and down do not exist objectively, alright? And they are only subjective human conceptions that we personally use to simplify our lives, alright? At present, demonstrated in a million ways, the macrocosm holds various space-time continuums completely disconnected from each other, alright? And the difference between each continuum is the very absence of space-time, in which the rules of distance or direction do not apply. So it makes no sense to talk about a height above that of the living world. Alright, the video is already over 20 minutes long, so if you made it this far into the video and you're not already subscribed, come on bro, hit the subscribe button. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, bro. Come on, like the video, it helps out a lot. You may think liking the video doesn't help out, but it really does, so please smash that subscribe button, smash the like button, and thanks for watching so far, and let's continue with the final parts, the conclusion of this video. Now we're told to leave the Western conceptions of the afterlife at Heaven's Gate. So people who have really weird conclusions about the afterlife are already wrong going based off of this alone. Now, the translation of the Daisenchu scan is usually one of the most contentious parts of the scale. So far, we've been able to establish that the afterlife is not a dimensional construct, so wouldn't that just make it zero-dimensional? Wrong, because the Daisenchu translation actually says, a supernatural world in the hands of the gods, higher than the heavens, transcending dimensions that cannot be perceived from the human world. The gods of the kingdom of heaven look down on all the world from this land. This is deep L, by the way. I've never heard of any zero-dimensional constructs transcending dimensions, so... And if you don't agree with this translation and you think it's not good enough, here's one from an artificial intelligence itself. Yes, the term shoujigen is present in the sentence you provided. It appears that the phrase shoujigen shoetsu, which can be translated as transcending dimensions. In this context, shoujigen refers to a place or state that exists beyond the normal dimensions of space or time, or that is capable of moving between different dimensions. The full sentence in Japanese can be translated as a heaven that transcends dimensions that cannot be seen from the human world. Well, we all know the afterlife doesn't move between anything, so the context is that it's referring to a place that transcends the concept of space-time, which we know because of everything I've provided in this video. And if you somehow disagree with both DeepL and ChatGPT, here's the translation from a Japanese student living in Japan. He said that the translation that Hermes gave, which was this translation, is contextually incorrect, and he gave a better translation following the context. Read it and see just how broken it makes. Now, I've seen people say that since the afterlife has higher dimensions, it would mean that it will be bounded by time and space, since higher dimensions are space-time constructs. But why does the term higher dimension have to inherently mean higher spatial or mathematical dimension? It could just be a higher plane of existence. Now, we know the afterlife does have different planes of existence. The Hell, the Enma realm, and the Kaio realm. We know the macrocosm diagram is for simplification purposes only, and these realms actually transcend each other. And we know this is further backed up by Koyama, literally stating that there is the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth dimension. which he stated on multiple occasions to be beyond the concept of time and space, which is true because of what we know about the afterlife and everything I've said in this video. So these dimensions are planes of existence. So the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth, that would make the afterlife actually 3 layers into outerversal, alright? Another argument people try to make is the fact that since there are multiple timelines, it would mean that the afterlife would be bounded by time, because they make the assertion that since there are multiple timelines that are created because of decisions people make, it would mean that each afterlife would be created because of the decisions made of a timeline, which would mean they will be bound to the effects of cause and effect of another timeline, and therefore making it bounded by time, since the afterlife is created as a result of a timeline being created, which would mean it's linked to events that have to do with cause and effect, making it bounded by time. Man, that was a mouthful. Okay, so this is a pretty easy debunk, alright? The point is that something like cause and effect isn't necessarily physical or dimensional, but instead it could be a logical principle. As I've said like quite some time ago to some of my friends, timelines in Dragon Ball are stories, conceptual stories. A timeline in Dragon Ball is not just a parallel universe or something like that, but it's a completely different parallel story. The fact that Goku banged Chi-Chi and then went into the past, then went into another different space-time continuum, is a story and a timeline in of itself, because it is conceptual. The same applies for cause and effect. Dimensionally speaking, cause and effect is the physical principle that each reaction has a cause and so on. The point is that cause and effect is also a logical and conceptual principle. Let's imagine a different opera than Dragon Ball, and let's say that this opera has an outerversal cosmology created by a superior being that lives in a higher cosmology. Notice how this outerversal cosmology is an effect of cause, which is the dude that created it, right? So the outerversal cosmology got created, so it has a cause. So it has to do with cause and effect, right? So in one way or another, it's tied to time. Wouldn't that be contradicting it being outer? Now, what you need to read is that it's hella stupid to use this kind of debunk. What happens in Dragon Ball is, we have a story, and this story, the events happen within the story, whether they're physical or not. We also have logical principles, and stories follow logical principles, like the conceptual cause and effect, for example. Let's say that for some reason the story diverges, and we have 2 stories now. Notice how even if the stories are 2, and even if there's a reason why these stories got divided, they still have the same properties and characteristics of a story, right? And what did we say? Oh yeah, a story is all the events that happen regardless of their physicity, right? So this means that it doesn't matter about that, right? That debunk is completely useless, alright? The afterlife isn't connected to time, alright? It's just story shit. If you don't understand what I said, you can go ahead and rephrase it, alright?
Oh my god, the video's already over 30 minutes long. If I missed anything out, please remind me in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe, share. Please like, subscribe, and share. Peace out.
Now hush, little baby, don't you cry. Everything's gonna be